I was gonna say if Micah wants to move in a little bit, to
Yes.
like kind of
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're kind of
bring
like
him
out of
in.
frame.
That better?
There we
better?
go. Now you guys look like you like each other.
Yeah.
Unlike the three of us.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to another episode of Film Asylum, where if you are crazy about movies, you belong here. We are your hosts, Colin Peters.
John Rashetter.
Wow, you didn't go with Dickless. All right. And I'm Jeff
I
Manford.
could have. We have company here, Jeff. We have company.
Yeah, right.
Maybe a little bit more respectful.
Is that your bedroom name?
Today
Yes,
we got
it's true. This man has no dick.
Oh,
There it is.
Well, that's what I heard.
I'll whip it out in front of everybody. Don't.
Don't tempt me with a good time. Let the mustache
Oh,
fool you.
my.
I'm bringing the 70s back. Anyway, we got special guests with us today. The guys from the band Gozer. Welcome, guys. Do you want to introduce
Hey.
yourselves and tell everybody a little bit about yourselves?
You go first, brother. I'm Nick. I play guitar in Gozer.
I'm also Nick. I play drums. I'm Micah, and I'm the lead singer.
With us in spirit today is our bass player Sean. So I want to give him a quick shout out.
Hell yeah.
And he better have seen Ghostbusters to this
Yeah.
point, because prior to today he has not seen the movie.
At all.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Really?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah,
We were blown away.
Yeah, we can't say
I
how
even accidentally
thought
came
about-
across it. Just never saw it.
Yeah, just never was interested
Yep.
to check it out, So
Like,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah. We should think about replacing, we should open
Yeah.
Sean, you're getting replaced, bro.
Are we calling open auditions like
There you
right
go.
here, right now on the show?
Yeah. Must have seen Ghostbusters
Yeah.
1 and 2.
He's too much of a valuable bassist. We would
Yeah,
never
yeah.
give him
We would
up
never.
ever.
No,
He's
no,
awesome.
no.
Any true musician, that's the truth.
Face.
Well, thank you guys for coming on again. This is really awesome. We actually talked about trying to get this set up on our Ghostbusters Afterlife episode because we thought it was appropriate with you guys having the name Gozer, obviously, to talk about Ghostbusters. And today being 2024, 1984 marks the 40th anniversary for the original Ghostbusters. So
Dude, that's awesome.
we felt like this was like perfect and organic. And obviously I'm repping you guys
Love it.
and the movie.
Yeah.
So before we get into the movie, did you guys take inspiration from the movie to name the band? And if so, or if not, how did the name Gozer actually come about?
Yep. Unapologetically, yes. 100,000,000,000%. It's from the movie. So Sean, our bass player, and I, we were sitting at our former house in Schenectady, and we were just thinking about this project and what we wanted it to be. And I just thought Gozer was cool because, like in the movie, Gozer was whatever it wanted to be. And I thought that was kind of
Nice.
an idea for a project. Like we could do whatever we wanted to do. And since that inception back in like 2017, this thing has kind of morphed into something that we didn't really anticipate. We kind of, like, all right, if we want to do things and contribute for independent films, we'll do that. If we want to contribute music to podcasts, we'll do that. If we want to play live, we'll do that. We could just let's do whatever the heck we want to do. No real restrictions with genre or anything like that. So yeah, it's straight up from Ghostbusters.
And that's a perfect name then for like
Yeah.
the genre and like the branching out that you guys are doing. That's awesome. I love that. I never knew that. So it's perfect for the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, today we're going to be talking about 1984's original Ghostbusters movie. It starred Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson. Who am I forgetting? Annie Potts, Sigourney Weaver,
Harold
Rick
Ramis?
Moranis, Harold Ramis. Directed by Ivan Reitman yet. So, I mean, this movie is like, if you don't know 80s or comedy, then it's like everything you need to know in one.
Yeah.
I grew up on that. Like I was born in 82. So like I got to see a lot of that in action, and it's like once you see that kind of comedy, like it's like you're hooked on it forever. Like the dry sense of humor, the dry sarcasm. I mean, it's great.
The one-liners in this film, like this film is like totally like I don't know anybody who doesn't like it. I think the only thing that I've ever heard anybody diss on it is somebody saying, "Oh, I think these comedians are stupid," which I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right.
These guys were part of the glory days of SNL. I mean, the good majority of them.
I mean, these are like comedy's geniuses. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and especially now, I mean, comedy is just absolute dog shit. So,
For real.
I mean, you look back at a movie like this, and I can't see anybody going, "Man, how is this not genius?"
Yeah, yeah. I think I remember hearing Quentin Tarantino do like an interview on some late night talk show, and he was talking about the perfect movie where like no matter like no one can really say anything to bring it down, and I think that this is in that category 100%.
Right.
It's just a perfect movie. No one can really say anything to bring it down.
And this movie had like so many different how do I say it? Like the infancy of it was so broad originally. Like Dan Aykroyd obviously took inspiration from the Fox sisters, which were kind of like an Ed and Lorraine Warren group before Ed and Lorraine Warren were a thing. And then his father or his grandfather, I think, actually held seances at their farm in Canada.
Yeah,
They talked about things like levitation and connecting with the spiritual realm. And I think his dad even has a book called The History of Ghosts.
Okay.
He's one
pretty
of the
wild.
occult. He's definitely a fan of the occult for sure. Has been for years.
God, what's not to like,
Yeah. It's like everything's just like so unknown. And I think he did a really smart thing when well, I don't think he can take all the credit for it because Ivan Reitman was even telling him this script was like, what was it, Jeff? 200 pages or something originally?
Yeah, and it was really outlandish. Like it was in the future and space, and like essentially like they were janitors in a way. Like ghosts were so common that they needed this. And
they didn't confine it originally to the point where it was like three guys that were coming up with something unique and different and starting a business. It was kind of like they were already here and established, and they're just fighting everything that's conspiracy theories, supernatural, paranormal. Well, that they're the same thing, but like alien, like So they were like, we got to trim this thing down and confine it to something that's
pages. Oh man, and any studio would be like, no, we're not greenlighting this script.
Well, originally, Universal, I think, Universal and Coca-Cola are kind of like one business, just like branched out with like different names. Right. And Coca-Cola thought that like this movie was, they liked the comedy, but comedies were very cheap and they could make money back. And when they said, you want special effects, costumes, they were like, if this bombs, we're not going to get anything for it. But
actually, I think it was Columbia that actually has it. Like was with Coke. Universal owned the original name to Ghostbusters, which was like a '70s show. Which honestly, I want to check out because like it's two guys and a gorilla, hunting down ghosts.
What?
Yeah. They even like would answer the phone, "Hey, Ghostbusters." Yeah. And it's just like a guy in a gorilla suit, just part of the team. It's
Ghostbusters meets Planet of the Apes. I mean, like what?
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
And like actually, if you look at some of like the footage of that show, you can see like there's a lot of similarities. And the fact that the people making the movie didn't know about this show is even funnier because like you said, you're literally doing the same thing, but not knowing about what's going on.
And, right. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. There was no internet back then, right? They couldn't just like, wait a sec, guys. Hey, guys, we might have a problem.
Shit, we have landlines. That's all we have to go off of.
Yeah, right.
And fax machines. But what they did was actually really smart. They all collaborated. I think they even said that they went to Dan Aykroyd's beach house. It was Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and Ivan Reitman. And according to Harold Ramis's daughter, they all got high and were just jotting down notes and said, "What about this? What about that?" And explains a Marshmallow Man, you know.
Yeah.
That makes so much more sense now.
People turning into dogs. I mean, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But what they did was actually really smart, where they said, I think we should make it 3 scientists that are into the paranormal activity, and they're trying to prove it, trying to become basically exterminators. And they start up a business, and people are skeptical, and they got government agents trying to put them out. There's a love story involved with Sigourney Weaver's character Dana and Bill Murray's character Peter Venkman, which originally had no romanticism at all, because Dan Aykroyd was like, I'm not romantic. So
I don't even think there's any females in the cast originally.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, the original, it was literally just the 3 Ghostbusters. And then when Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman actually, you know, gave it some character, they added in the female, they added in the 4th, and it like, honestly, you could see that it was a little more inclusive with everybody, and you could see the jokes kind of flow through a little more, where Dan Aykroyd is a funny guy, but with his outlandish ideas, it became like a very dry thing.
Right.
Yeah.
There's only so much crazy you can put in a movie and then try to pretend like it's, you know, normal.
Yeah. But that's an interesting point, because like, you know, like I think the different characters, like they make it work. You have Aykroyd's character, you have his sense of humor, his personality, and it just blends well with the other ones. You know what I mean? It's
100%. I think they said it best in interviews prior, where Dan Aykroyd said that his character Ray Stantz was the heart of the Ghostbusters. Like they sold his family house or something to get the firehouse. I was born there. You didn't even reason with the guy.
Yeah.
When he got the loan.
19% interest rate. All right. I was even like offended by that.
I forgot.
And that was the 80s.
Right.
And you could just see the look of disappointment on his face. And Bill Murray's like, you're never going to regret this, Ray.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, listen, give it a couple of years, and 19% is going to be like, wow, really? That's really good. You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
Bill Murray, I think, is really good in that. Like, one of my favorite scenes in there is when he's doing like the card thing for the psychics, and he keeps electrocuting the guy, and then because he likes the girl, he's just like, yes.
You are so good at this. Are you sure you're not cheating?
Just from that one scene, you know he's a fraud, but he's enjoying being a fraud, a con artist. That's just his personality.
Yeah.
And the other guy getting zapped, he's like, I'm getting tired of this. He's like, well, we're paying you, aren't we? Like, that justifies everything.
I'll tell you what it's doing. It's pissing me off.
Well, maybe my theory is correct.
Right.
Oh, he played his character so well. So well.
And apparently Bill Murray ad-libbed a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, he did a lot of on the fly kind of things. Yeah, he's very famous for that.
How can somebody be that funny? You know,
Really, I mean, that guy. Like, when they say he was the voice, like they said, Ray was the heart, Egon was the brains, Venkman was the voice, and I guess you can say that Winston was like the muscle and now the sex appeal, according to him.
Man's like over 70, and he's looking like he's 45.
Yeah, that dude's
He still looks good for his age. Like, he got sexier over time. It's like, how is that a thing?
Because Ernie Hudson is just that fucking awesome.
Yes.
Well, after watching Afterlife, I was like, how old is everybody? Because like looking at like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, I mean, like, they look like complete dog shit. And I'm like, Ernie Hudson is, like you said, sexy as hell right now. But it's like, yeah, the fact that he's like 20 yeyears older than the other two, and he still looks better than them.
It's like looking at a ghost. It literally is.
Right?
He found the Fountain of Youth. He did his own little side quest from the Ghostbusters and discovered the Fountain of Youth.
Or maybe he was the inspiration for Vigo the painting, because he actually has like a Dorian Gray portrait of himself that keeps him young and beautiful forever.
It's Vigo.
Did you guys know that
Vigo the Butch?
I was just gonna say, did you guys know that originally it was supposed to be Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, and Eddie Murphy as the original trio?
Yes,
Okay,
I did hear that, and then something happened where I guess Eddie Murphy had like a conflicting schedule.
I think it was conflicting schedule, and
Yeah.
he was way too popular for what they could afford because I think the budget was $25 million, and the studio didn't really have any sort of like faith in the like special effects comedy.
At that same
Right.
time, Beverly Hills Cop came out, and that's what, like, in addition to 48 Hours, but Beverly Hills Cop like took him over the top to
Yeah.
stardom. So he just priced himself out. I can see that, and it was filmed. It was made in the exact same time.
Right.
Beverly Hills
And-
Cop and Ghostbusters.
And in the 80s, Saturday Night Live, Lorne Michaels didn't, I don't think he was the producer of Saturday Night Live at that time until he came back in the late 80s or early 90s. And
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy was like the only saving grace that was keeping it afloat.
Hmm.
So that's another reason why. But Aykroyd, apparently, they all knew each other from the comedy circuit because he was originally doing stand up as well. And then John Belushi unfortunately passed away. And Aykroyd even said he was literally writing a line for him the day he died and was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like best friends. So I'm
Yeah.
sure he was like devastated to find that out.
Yeah, he was good friends with both of the brothers. And yeah, and that really sucked because he was a really, really funny guy. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Belushi was hysterical. Animal House and all that.
That was one of the key things when they said, "Hey, let's model Slimer off of Belushi," like how he was like pigging out in Animal House. We'll make this ghost and like have our tribute and still put Belushi in here.
I think it was the eyebrows too, like the way John Belushi would move his eyebrows, and they were trying to mimic that with Slimer too, and it was kind of crazy. But it was that scene where he eats the potatoes like whole. That's where they're like, "Oh yeah, we can definitely throw that in." And you see Slimer just doing the damn near the same thing.
That's great. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's awesome. I'm gonna look at that through a different lens now. That's cool.
Oh
Also-
no, we lost
Oh,
Slimer.
speaking of Slimer,
Yeah, that's actually kind of funny.
But then again, that's what Slimer is. He's a zit. Get it?
get it? And I also found out Ivan Reitman, the director, was actually the voice of Slimer. All that. That was the
Really?
director, Ivan Reitman. Yeah.
Huh, okay.
Awesome.
I could be wrong, but he might have even did the Zuul when the terror dog Zuul comes through Dana's refrigerator the first time.
Which, like, by the way, like I know it's kind of labeled as a comedy. It's got all these comedic legends in it, but like seeing a couple of those scenes as a kid,
It was scary.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the Hellhounds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Which-
back in the 80s, they had one mentality. We don't give a shit. And this
Yeah,
is a movie that like
exactly.
blended so many different types of subgenres, whether it's just not just comedy, but sci-fi and horror and action. This movie has everything. It's one of those
Yeah.
films that actually
Mhm.
balances everything in accordance to making a good story unfold.
It's
Yeah,
like it's like the
I'm
first
sorry.
Terminator. It
Yeah.
has a little bit of everything, and that
Yeah.
first Terminator movie's like it's almost more like a sci-fi slasher, when
Yeah,
you
it is.
do a little more of a deep dive, but there's a love story. It's got good music, good acting, and it's got some like unintentional funny parts to it, like the "fuck you, asshole," So it like really makes you like feel moved in a wave of emotions. But yeah, I agree with you guys that there was so much stuff in here that I was like, yeah, maybe this really isn't meant for kids. But then, hey, what happened? We got an 80s cartoon out of it.
Yeah.
It was a really good cartoon too.
Oh, yeah.
I've watched all the seasons. It's great.
That was actually my introduction to the franchise was through the cartoon.
Yeah, no kidding.
And
Really?
I didn't know anything about it at first. And my dad was the one who said, actually, there were movies that came before it. And, we didn't have streaming at the time. You had to either go to a grocery store or mom and pop and Blockbuster. And if your parents were like, no, you're not getting this, it was like, oh, you couldn't watch these films. So I think the first live action movie I saw was actually Ghostbusters 2. And I forget how old I was, but finally it was either my 8th or 10th birthday, something like that. I finally got the first Ghostbusters on VHS. and I was so pumped to finally see the Marshmallow Man in live action. I was like, yes.
Right.
It was the greatest moment.
Mother puss bucket.
And then also, like, after the cartoon and seeing how, like, obviously, like, when you're 8 or 10 at that time and you grow up with the cartoon and you see the sequel first, and knowing films the way I do now, you kind of forget to realize how this was like such a one-off movie where they had so much story in here that, I mean, they obviously didn't know it was going to be a franchise. I mean, nobody ever really does, but then all of a sudden it just started taking off, and you're getting napkins and shirts with these Ghostbusters logos on it. And
cereal and
Everything.
also, I gotta say, thank God that the movie wasn't called Ghost Breakers or Ghost Smashers.
Yeah.
Because
that would have never sold.
no.
Yeah.
And also, I think the Ray Parker Jr. song also really helped make the movie what it is, because
This guy.
You brought it up. I think we're thinking the same thing, man. All
right. So this is weird, like the dichotomy of this, because I think it's a good song. I do. I like it, but I just like there's something about it, and maybe it's like I'm a little younger, but like I watch it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's very 80s.
This guy.
I don't know.
Oh, even the music video, it's so 80s.
Wasn't there?
Let's say the fact that the video made itself known in the Frozen Empire was actually the funniest part, that they made that video canon. And I'm like,
none of us have seen that.
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah.
I've seen
You
it.
guys haven't seen Frozen Empire yet?
Not yet.
then I won't talk
Okay.
anymore about that.
We won't talk. Yeah, we won't talk about.
But
But wasn't that like heavily influenced by another song? Like
Huey Lewis's Need a New Drug, supposedly.
Yes. Need a new drug when they won't make me sick.
I mean, it could be, or it could simply just have been Huey Lewis is a dick. I was like, hey.
And he totally is.
Yeah, right.
I mean, according to Ray Park, he actually wrote it in 2 days, and the tape that he sent over to Ivan Reitman is what you hear in the movie. So like he took that recording. He took that recording. He's like, oh shit, all right, right in the movie. Like they didn't really like listen to it all the way, and honestly, it just fit the scenes perfectly. So they were working with a 10-month schedule, and as they were getting stuff done, they were editing it at night. So that was the thing. Like, dude wrote it in 2 days. He said the only reason he got the idea, he saw an exterminator commercial with the numbers and everything, and that's where he got the who you
He
gonna
said
call?
that coming up with the name Ghostbusters to a song title was like so difficult. He was like, what goes with Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
And the who you gonna call, like Jeff said, was like, hey, just remember to call us, and kind of appropriate because they're like ghost exterminators.
That makes sense.
But I thought that was great. And then I think Huey Lewis actually sued Ray Parker Jr. for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
Dude, that's
What the hell?
bullshit.
It is bullshit, because I heard pro wrestler Jake the Snake Roberts actually say it best, because a lot of pro wrestlers now, they like to use his finishing move, the DDT. And somebody said to him on a podcast, what do you think about that? And he goes, well, we don't really ever invent anything new anymore at this point in our lives. We just retell it. So like, we're always going to find a song with something, similar to a past song, or we're going to see some movie with some similar interest or some influence. I mean, like we've talked about it before on so many like films, like The Crow and Kill Bill are basically the same thing. You just reinvent. You're just reinventing it from a girl in a concussion, taking revenge out, until she's done. And then RoboCop kind of has like influence of resurrection and the coming of Jesus.
Oh,
Like Superman.
Like that.
Superman, for example, Michael Uslan, one of the main Batman producers, he actually got a college course credited because he wanted to teach a class on comic books. And his dean said, like, this will never work. I mean, I respect your pitch, but he said, hey, do did you ever read comics? And he said, yeah. Well, what's your favorite comic book? Superman. And he said, okay. Well, do you know the story of Superman? Yeah, it was last son of Krypton. He got sent to Earth from his family, and he grew up to become the protector and savior of Earth and lead the people into something good. And he said, okay, now can you explain the story of Moses to me? He said, family sent their son in a wicker basket down the River Nile, and he leads these people. And he was like, your course is accredited.
It's just like, okay, I see where this is going.
So like, it's like the same thing with reboots for me. Like, I kind of let it slide, but I'm like, okay, but just do it right, because everything that we do is going to be reinvented or rehashed or retold some way, somehow. But I will say, I am glad we just totally skipped over the 2016 Ghostbusters with all the girls, just because that was absolute trash.
That was a bad script.
That was
bad script, bad direction. It just isn't what we needed.
My wife and I, like, we wanted to like that movie so badly because the amount of trash and flack that they got. Like, I don't think any of those actors none of them deserved that.
No, they didn't deserve the hate that they got, the actor.
Yeah, that was crazy. So we saw that and we're like, all right, well, we're going to give him the money. But then when we walked out, it was like, it's kind of a bad movie.
They were only working with like, it's not on them. They're actually funny girls.
Yeah.
They were working
totally.
The script they were given was trash.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
One wonton.
The one thing, actually, somebody did a little review between comparing Ghostbusters 1984 and 2016 was that, yes, you had improv in 84 and you have too much improv in 2016, where it's like, if you just cut that scene right there and just saved 30 seconds of riffing, you would have gotten your point across, and it probably would have been a little bit better.
Yeah,
but they just keep dishing out jokes. I'm like, guys, if you just cut that scene 30 seconds shorter, there's no change. But the shorter scene would have been more popular with the audience, But it's not just one scene; it's multiple scenes where they do that. But yeah, the script wasn't there. It wasn't.
It wasn't to say also, if you like how in 84 they played the paranormal part like straight, so that was the serious part, and then the jokes were added to kind of bump it up, where 2016 they didn't take any of that stuff serious, so it's like there was no point at us to believe that they were actually taking their job serious either.
You couldn't buy it.
Yeah, so at that point you're already kind of like digging yourself a hole going, it'll work.
Right.
It was kind of insulting to everybody too, who were patrons for, of the franchise and fans, because it was almost like, they'll go pay to go see it no matter what, because it's Ghostbusters.
Yes. And the cameos are disrespectful.
Yeah. And at that point I was like, listen, I sat through the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street, and fool me once,
I'm sorry.
84 all the way.
Yeah.
Another 80. Yeah, we did cover that one already, but yeah, another 84 movie.
John, you brought up a good point that I kind of want to bring back. So, like, I think it's interesting that in any creative endeavor, whether it's like stand-up comedy or music or storytelling, like there can, like, when you're creating something, small little tweaks, like, oh, if we cut that scene a couple seconds earlier, or if we show it a little bit longer, or if we add an extra word in that lyric, like, small changes can make a colossal impact, like, and what comes to mind with us is our one of our songs, "The Beast That Lies." When it was originally written and originally played, the very end of the song was kind of the same tempo, and I think it was your idea to, like, at the end of the song, progressively slow it down until it's to the point where it's just very, like, slow and trudgy, and but small tweaks like that can, like, make or break something. They can make it better, or they can make it absolute trash, and I just interesting, like things in the editing room, like, oh, let's cut it here instead of 2 seconds, and it's a better scene. It's funnier that way. It's like, well, it's 2 seconds. What are you talking about? But it just is.
Yeah, editing is such an important art like in itself, like that's a movie in itself just to edit. I mean, when you're looking at countless scenes, countless takes, and then going, okay, well, this isn't the best audio, let's put this in here, maybe we got to re-record that and then sync it up, or how you at that time they were doing like matte layers for special effects, and they were saying, okay, now let's like almost do stop motion animation where it's like, let's move this matte layer over. Yeah, it takes so much, and then to make sure they get it right. And if they don't get that little tweak in there, it can, like you said, Nick, it can make and break a product so easily.
Yeah, I think that whole process is just fascinating, and I nerd out. It's part of the reason I love your guys' show so much, because you guys really take a deep dive and break down all those small behind the scenes work. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
It's just like, so the
thank you.
product itself is already like cool. Okay, we can appreciate that art form, but then when you actually break down the stuff that you guys talk about, like the hours taken into those small little tweaks, it just makes you appreciate the art that much more.
Yeah, people don't get it. Like even something so simple like lighting is so important. I mean, like you can't have like, look at like the 60s Batman show. You know, it's all like bright colors, pops. It's like it's totally comic book off the page, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But then when you see something like Batman '89 with Michael Keaton, what Tim Burton did, and it's dreary. There are no colors. And the only color in that, and the irony is, it's this Joker character who's evil. You know, like when you think of colors, you think nice, awesome, it's warm, it's inviting. You know, no, that character's evil.
The
one who actually is the hero is the dark character. It looks like a gargoyle from hell, and it's protecting you. And it's like the colors can tell a story in a movie themselves.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they did that with you know, the like people. I feel like in Batman, people are trying to keep recreating that dark and dreary, and over time, as they've made Batmans, it just seems like it gets cornier and cornier, and it almost becomes a joke of itself. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I mean, I think like a character like Batman should almost be set in like a 1940s atmosphere.
Yes, totally.
Because you can't take a character that's supposed to dress like that and scare anybody anymore. I mean, perfect example is the beginning of the '89 movie was the burglars are scared of him as soon as they see him. When he makes his appearance, and our friend Carl Newman, who was Michael Keaton's movement double, he actually was on the show with us. He does the first scene with the cape opening and coming down, and we talked about how he scares those guys, and the suit's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be like, you know, nobody dresses up like that. Like by 2024, well, even years ago, we had cosplays, and people are doing this and that now, and people are so desensitized to horror movies that, like, the next thing I can compare it to is if you watch the latest Batman with Robert Pattinson, the first scene when he walks in to see the bad guys dressed in like clown makeup, they say, "Who are you supposed to be?" They're not really scared of him. And it's like, that's kind of like how society is. So like, this character wouldn't fit in with 2024 at all anymore. You'd have to keep him back in like when the time frame when he first came in at. And that's what sets certain characters apart. And for something like Ghostbusters, we can actually take this stuff and carry it on all the way till now, and it can still be perfect and fit in. Like I remember thinking, like as a kid, I was a member of a Ghostbusters fan club because I was like, well, I don't have Superman powers, you know, I'm not Captain America, but I could be in Ghostbusters because we all heard about ghost stories. We can all like read books on the paranormal. We all heard the stories around the campfire that interest us. And it was just one of those things that it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what age you could be, and it will be something that can keep living on, and we can figure out this mythology of like I don't know if Gozer was actually a true Sumerian god, but I know that it was. Okay, I think Zuul was too, if I remember correctly.
Yes, they're both based on actual Sumerian gods. I like I studied
right.
deep into the occult. Like I got books and books on stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So yes, they were both actually Sumerian gods, and they were like a real big deal. Like they were bad, like really bad.
Gozer's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's so huge right now.
It's so huge. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
But speaking of lighting, Colin, that's the one scene where you see like the unnatural lighting come to full, where you actually get like a full glimpse of like the full power of Gozer when they have
Yes.
the confrontation on the rooftop scene in New York. But before that, leading up to it, the lighting in the entire movie is almost incredibly natural.
Yeah.
Even like scenes
the
where they're
most
trying to
part,
hunt down Slimer, the librarian, where it's appropriately dark. It requires so much lighting and focus just to make the scene look natural. Because I've seen some bad films where it's so overblown, glossy, and overlit. And that's not this at all. They did a great job to making everything look natural.
Oh, come on. Samurai Cop is natural.
They didn't have any
God.
lights to begin with. So no, it did not look natural.
That's
It goes from
it did. There was no lighting except for natural light.
You're telling me it goes from like orange to blue just naturally out in the real world? There are scenes where it goes from orange to yellow to blue to even a slight change of purple. That's not real.
I didn't say that they didn't use the proper lens filters. I'm just saying they use natural lighting.
Because they didn't have lighting to do anything.
So there's never a night shot.
Exactly.
True story. Look up Samurai Cop. You guys will like it.
That's too much money.
That's
That's too much money.
Cheese, like great cheese, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. A good mix of purples, good mix of just like not just like fog and dry ice, but like a good blend of whites at the very end. So, but it's a good combination of natural and supernatural.
Yeah.
Are you guys big Mystery Science Theater fans?
Oh, talk to this guy down in the bottom corner.
Yeah.
The one with Raw Julia overdrawn at the memory bank is just one of the funniest ones that I recommend to anybody who likes Mystery Science. Like that's the first one you should watch because it is straight cheese. He looks like he doesn't even know what he's doing in there.
Yo, he looks batshit crazy in that movie.
Yes, he does.
I would say either that one or it's called the Giant Spider Invasion. That's another one that's always
another
like,
great
a
one.
solid one.
But guys, for Raul Julia, it was Tuesday. For you guys, it was the most important day of your life, but for him, it was Tuesday.
It was Tuesday. It was Tuesday.
So are you saying Adam's Family's Wednesday then?
That's so lame, but I'll give you that one.
Well, if that's the case, then what's it? Street Fighter? That was Monday because nobody likes Monday.
I don't think he even liked that one. We lost a good actor, though.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got anything else with the movie? Any other?
Yeah, I actually want to talk about how the character chemistry between Ernie Hudson was actually a big time game changer. He was supposed to be in it a lot longer, but I don't know if it was just cuts or probably because it went through so many changes. But I remember Dan Aykroyd was saying it was like so important to have an outsider character come in and be just that guy to like learn the business and get into the paranormal because at the time they're being attacked by the EPA, and even though like they're gaining this popularity, it was still nice to have the three scientists and then this other guy that was like, you think he was supposed to be a military veteran or he was honorably discharged or something. That was like Winston's original role.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I also think it has to do with the rhythm and flow of the story too, because bear in mind that they started this business, they quit their jobs and basically are like going into business for themselves, working in a demilitarized zone in this very terrible area of New York, and they're penniless. They're eating Chinese food as their last meal, so they can't afford to bring any additional help in. And then when they start getting popular after the capture of Slimer, now they need more help. Now they have more money flow coming in. So it kind of made sense to bring them in at that point because they couldn't do that originally. I mean, I don't know, just the way I see it.
He was more of the realist out of the group. Like
Right.
he was like, I'm just there for a job.
There's a
Right.
steady paycheck in it.
Well,
I'll believe
yeah.
anything you say.
Yeah.
You guys were saying, like with Batman, where it's like, oh, like nowadays everybody's used to everything, and it'd be like ghosts. Okay, fine, yeah, that's sure. But like back then, I feel like it's someone that the audience could kind of relate to, where it's like, well, I don't know anything about the paranormal,
Right.
so I'll
Right.
learn this character. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good
That's
point.
real
Like
good.
he was our eyes just on the screen.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
he was us, like following the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
You guys like, it's a butcher, of course, but like, if it pays well, I'll believe anything you tell me.
Yeah.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
There you go. There you go.
That big smile on his face.
And I gotta say, like, out of all the lines, I think for the limited stuff that Ernie Hudson had and not being the comedian, he really had the best lines in the movie.
Oh, he was great.
Like
yeah.
everything was gold. Like the paycheck line, that's a big Twinkie. Like, how is that funny?
Yeah,
Honestly,
But he made it work.
I think it was the way he delivered everything. Like you said, he was playing it straight and he was playing it as an actor. He wasn't a comedian. So like all the jokes were really well placed, and then just him delivering it was what made the impact.
I still
Yeah.
think the best writing was for Harold Ramis. I think he had the best, like, in terms of his character. I mean, the setting up that Twinkie line. Let's pretend that this Twinkie represents the psychokinetic energy in the city. At this rate, where it's going to be 35 feet long and weighing over 600 pounds.
yeah.
I'm terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought. I collect spores, fungus, and molds.
Yeah, deadpan delivery. Yeah.
Egon, this reminds me of the time you tried to drill a hole through your head. That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me.
He was one of my favorite Ghostbusters too. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh,
Yeah,
I loved it.
I think
Honestly,
his writing was the best.
Oh
I gotta say, like, out of all the Ghostbusters, I know Bill Murray's Bill Murray, but he's probably my least favorite because I felt like he wasn't the guy who, like, he was still. I think he's the most funny. Don't get me wrong, but
Oh yeah.
as far as like an actual Ghostbuster, he was always chasing pussy. He cared more about money. You know, he really wasn't like all in except for himself.
It was a
Oh,
con
yeah.
artist.
He was a teen guy. I mean, he was a teen guy, but like the core guys that really gelled what Ghostbusters is was Egon, Winston, and Ray to me.
Peter was more of the salesman,
Right.
basically, of like, like the quick-witted, like, oh yeah, well maybe you should da 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 da, and people would look at him and go, "You're kidding, right?" And he just like had this straight face. He'd be like, "Sure."
You forget he's a doctor. Like, what exactly are you a doctor of?
I mean,
man, yeah.
I was like, I think Dana had the best line. She goes, "You're not really a scientist, you're a game show host."
Yeah.
I'm like, that kind of resonated better with him as a character because, like, it's true. Even when it goes over to 2 and he hosts that psychic show,
Oh my
that's
God.
more fitting for him than being a Ghostbuster.
And then I think in Afterlife we find out he's like teaching marketing or something.
Yeah,
At a party school.
Yeah.
of all places.
Of the like original 3 of Bankman, Egon, and Ray, like who do you guys model yourselves after? Like who's the Egon of your guys' crew? Who's the Bankman? Who do you got?
Ooh. We've often thought about that actually.
We had.
It's,
I would say honestly,
Jeff's
you look at-
definitely Venkman.
yeah, I was gonna say I get that a lot,
Yeah.
and that wasn't even my doing. It's just because I have a mouth.
I am Egon. That is me. I am Egon. I'm the researcher.
Yeah,
Analyzing things. Yes, that's me.
And I wear it with pride, and I do feel like I'm Ray because it was my idea to do the show. I really put a lot of heart, and I love movies and love deep diving about this stuff. And I was able to get these guys that I consider my brothers involved, and and here we are. Like,
That's cool.
like
That's
what,
very awesome.
5 years now? Like 4
Yeah.
or 5 years we've been doing this.
Yeah.
it would have been 5 years on Easter, but our show got posted July 18th, or reposted, I should say.
Yeah, first episode was The Exorcist.
Yeah,
We originally had like 6 members, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People in the
Yeah, we
show at
had-
one point, like, okay,
Yeah,
now we're down to 3.
we're like, we're doing a podcast about movies. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
and then one guy, for lack of a better word, ghosted on us. It was like, oh, all right.
He is still alive. I just want to point out he is still alive.
Yeah.
I was gonna say which one.
Yeah.
I can think of two.
The original one who's only did those 2 episodes.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So in Ghostbusters 2, what did you think about them choosing Vigo the Carpathian as a ghost? Like in that writing, like how did you guys did you like it? Did you think it was a little off for the series?
No, I loved
No,
it.
I like Vigo.
I like that it was I'm actually more interested in backstories, and I think there's an interesting backstory. And what was that painting actually painted all these years ago? Was it kind of like a before I die, this is where I'm gonna jump into, and all I need is to be resurrected at a certain time? And the New Year's Eve was that sort of moment, and New York being like a catalyst between all the people from Ellis Island to whatever
Right.
paranormal activity could be in New York City alone could have activated it. I'm like, yeah, I thought it was great. My biggest beef with 2 was that they made it seem like 100-foot marshmallow man, and all their success from the first movie was non-existent.
They thought it was
Right.
fake and
Yeah.
crap. I'm like, no, you can't fake that.
There could have been a much better movie there.
Yeah.
If they just would have said the government put our hands tied because they just didn't want anything to do with it, and until they actually cover it in a different light, then we'll get our license to come back and do
Beat
this.
for beat, it did feel a lot like the first movie. Like it was a retread. That's my biggest issue with the film, and the fact that they're bankrupt because everyone thought, like Colin said, everybody thought it was fake. It was just some fantastic light show, and they just shit 100-foot marshmallow man out their ass, and they got the whole city to believe in it for 30 minutes. But
Right.
But
And
with
it's even-
Vigo, I did I would love to learn more about the backstory of the artist of that song.
Yeah.
Was it a warlock? Was it a witch of some kind
Exactly.
who incorporated supernatural elements to that painting to make sure that he came back to life after he was poisoned, stabbed, shot, hung, strapped, disemboweled, drawn, and quartered?
Right.
I mean, the canvas could have been Vigo's skin for all we know, and that's what they painted over. There's so much, the Necronomicon.
Yeah.
It's there could be so much wild stuff that, I feel 2's underrated because it gets bashed for that. Oh, it's wash, rinse, repeat in a way. But I'm like, no, there's layers to this movie.
Oh yeah.
And it still is one of those, it's a franchise now. You don't have to introduce the characters anymore. They hit the ground running a little bit. You saw more of the firehouse, which also, by the way, the firehouse is a real firehouse in New York City, but the interior was filmed in LA.
Which is
Really?
also a real firehouse in LA. But back to Vigo, they do bring up he is a wizard or sorcerer or whatever the hell you want to call him.
Yes.
So the fact that they decided to go still in the supernatural realm, but more of the occult, does open the door with whatever. At some point you could probably see, I'm just going to throw out Bigfoot just as a joke, but it does open the door that way, because now you're able to say, all right, so it's not just all supernatural they deal with. They do deal with all the crazy wild stuff that does happen, like Mothman and all that.
All that
But-
crazy stuff. Yeah.
But he might have actually enchanted that painting as in, let's say, the concept of Hocus Pocus, where they did the spell, they were able to come back. So someone discovering that painting and then starting to interact with it probably made it come back to life. So he was able to come back in our time, but he just needed a real body to inhabit.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why he somewhat had a hold over Janosch.
See, I think it was
Yeah.
Janosch's voice. He was like, this dude's just so annoying. He just wanted him to shut up.
I need a peon. Whenever I want.
Yeah, just a weenie, creepy, yeah.
The way they played off of him, though, especially with Peter, he'd be like, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good. No, actually, that's Peter McNichol, right?
Yep.
He's awesome.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a character, yeah.
You'll never get a green card with that attitude, John.
Dude, my favorite line from him had to be, "You're doing that real bad. I just want you to know that."
Yeah. And that's what it's like. You can miss that because it's in the background as they're walking in. You know, it's just it's subtle. You know,
Yeah.
Good one.
And that's the beauty about all the humor in these movies. Even now, like they still carry it in the Afterlife and Frozen Empire, all that subtle, dry humor, like especially Egon's granddaughter with her dad jokes and stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
wow. I mean, like for 2016 to bomb was actually a major blessing because we got the actual continuation that we really wanted.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't exactly, like I would have still preferred a third one with the original guys, and it's sad it came out that way. But I mean, the video game's kind of like a third movie in a way too. But
I used to play the video game on the Commodore, the Ghostbusters game on the Commodore computer, the floppy disk. Oh my God, played the hell out of it. Loved it so much. Like my dad got it. He goes, "Oh, it's Ghostbusters," and like getting all the like the things for the car, and you could also drive a. They also had a not only like a station wagon, but you could also have like a buggy too. Oh yeah, a Volkswagen bug. Yeah, they had that too.
And that's another thing I love now is like they are expanding so much. Like, they're recognizing Ecto 1 is more of a character now instead of just the ambulance car that they drive. Like it's having a little more gadgets to it. They're upgrading proton packs and traps. It's like everything that you want to see in a sequel, they're doing right now.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think it's exciting to be a Ghostbusters fan, actually.
Yeah.
Like we even actually had the stuntman who played the new Slimer, and he was telling us that the original Slimer foam suit was it didn't age well, but they remelded it, put it in the new foam, and basically have like that DNA of Slimer, and he was wearing kind of like a rebuffed, remodeled version of the old suit.
Oh no way!
That's cool.
And there was a
Kevin
lot
Mangold
more.
was his name. Really great.
Yeah, it was our latest episode actually, and he was even telling us that like so much too was practical effects. Like it was him in a suit and he was running out, and there was very little CGI in that movie. It was kind of like only if they had to.
Right.
Right.
Like, and
Not as a
that's
crutch, but just as a little fine tune.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, too much is not good, and I don't know. Yeah, so you need a balance between the two, I think.
Mhm.
I think the only problem I have, and not by giving anything away about like the third movie, but is the buildup, basically.
You talking about Afterlife?
Yeah, because like in a lot of the Ghostbusters movies, they had a great buildup to their enemies. This one was kind of lacking, I felt.
Yeah, Afterlife kind of gave more of a closure, as I say, for Gozer, and which is, I think it was a good thing because it was very nostalgic, and we didn't really ever know what happened with Gozer at the end of the first movie. Yeah, Gozer takes the form of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but then they just cross the streams and blast the doors, but they never really say why the doors are so important. They just say it's a portal, but it looks so simple, like these glass doors, and what the beams do is they just kind of wrangle ghosts and they trap them until they put them in the storage unit. It's like, so it's this unexplained thing, but then they kind of gave more of a final story.
Yeah. Did you see they used the rust monster from one of the cartoons?
No.
Yeah, so that rust
yeah.
monster is the ghost is actually in one of the cartoons. So I thought that was very interesting because they were chasing this ghost in this factory, and that's where that's where that rust monster was. And I'm like, oh, they're bringing this guy out. I go, that's interesting. That's pretty cool.
Huh.
Man, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I do think also like I would have loved a little bit more of a. It looked like we were starting to get it with Afterlife with the exploration of Ivo Shandor, who was playing by J.K. Simmons for about 5 seconds, and then he died. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess fuck that guy. But I would have wanted to see what they were going to do with him. You have a prominent actor in J.K. Simmons, and he's just gone after 5 seconds of speaking.
Yeah.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah,
That is one problem with the franchise. It has gone off the rails because like the video game gives you that story. Like we got another thing with Gozer, and then they show you that Gozer failed, and then we find out Ivo Shandor is actually the villain at the end of the game, which was really cool and a great idea. And they could have expanded that in the movie, but they just, I mean, we got to remember that movies really are just supposed to give us this, like, here's a story in 2 hours at the most. Like anything beyond 2 hours really is like too much. But like Ghostbusters and many other like big blockbuster franchises should be just like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 movies now. Like I think trilogies are kind of dead because we get an intro, you get a meat, and then you get something that could be like a beginning of the end and then the conclusion. Because intros are intros, you only get so much time to really see what the characters can actually do. Like one of my biggest flaws with the Dark Knight trilogy is I feel like there's a 4th movie in there before it actually ends. But old school filmmakers will still stick with the trilogy, and sometimes they can tell a great story like the original Star Wars characters. And that's where though we get things like shows to expand on and tell more of that, or comic books or books. And Ghostbusters as the franchise, I feel like wasn't really ever structured except for the cartoon, probably.
Yes.
So now that doesn't like follow canon with the actual movies. But I mean, if you're a fan, I guess you can say, yeah, it does, in my opinion, because I saw it in this cartoon and I liked it, or the video game could be a 3rd movie. But I think we put too much faith in the movies to say, tell this kind of story. And it's like, well, we live in the age of streaming where a series like Breaking Bad can tell a really good story in a whole series and everything's linear. Or how True Blood was a book series and that followed everything from beginning to end. And it's much easier when you tell mini movies rather than like one big movie and here's another big movie. I mean, Ghostbusters would be perfect for a show like on HBO or something like that.
Yeah,
That'd be amazing.
Especially because there's only so many times you can watch them break out the proton packs, zap a ghost, and then it's like the big lightsaber fight scene at the end of Star Wars. You don't want to overdo it throughout the whole movie because it's going to become zap them, cap them, trap them. But how are you going to, like, is the ghost going to be able to break free from them? Do they have to upgrade? Are they going to have religious artifacts? There's so many avenues they could go with it. And I mean, 84 though was like a great kicking off point. And you can love it just as a regular comedy movie. I found it like so much fun as a kid. And I actually talked to Ernie Hudson because I met him in 2011. Best dude ever.
I'm sure.
I mean, like, I can't talk about how meeting him and I think Adam West at the time were like the 2 best guys I ever met. And Ernie, I think like things about Ghostbusters 3 were a bit unknown and people were saying, well, when you meet him, talk about that. And I said, listen, if it's not on the internet, I'm sure he doesn't know about it.
Right.
But I just said, like it looked like all you guys had so much fun, and you even being like a real outsider of SNL and SCTV not fitting in, but the guys just accepted you as like part of the family, just meeting you for the first time and stuff. He was like, I didn't really appreciate it so much at the time because I was doing this TV show, that project, blah, 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 blah. But I look back on it and go, that was like really, really fun. And the experience, he said, was just off the charts.
That's so cool.
And I was like, that was really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
To go back on the are they going to bag them or trap them or anything? The cartoon actually started playing with that. So like when they would trap a ghost, sometimes the ghosts would escape, and they'd have to come up with Egon would have to come up with like a new way to like get them together. Like the one time where they had to use like 6 traps in order to capture this one thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It was crazy.
And I think in the video game, they came up with like a super slammer that's actually on Ecto 1. where it's like one of like it had all that shit on top of the roof, but yet nobody was like it never did anything. And then in the video game, they're like, yeah, we got the super slammer trap now. And it's like, oh, okay. Finally, it's not just all sirens.
I mean, that's even in 84, like all the stuff that they were coming up with was really ahead of its time. Like the proton packs, the wands, even Ecto 1 having all the gadgets. Like you're seeing like everything being built for the first time. So like even as now it's a franchise, I should say, is you're getting to see, all right, cool. These are the beginning stages. You're watching them buy a shitty car and then turn it into Ecto 1. Yeah. And like when he's talking about like he bought the car for 2,500 and then he's like rattling off all the stuff that's wrong with it. I'm like, you might as well just burn it. It might actually do some more.
And from what I heard, I think all those problems really were wrong with the car.
They even now
it always showed Ernie Hudson like fixing the engine or something.
Yeah.
I think they said the one scene where they're driving on the bridge where it's just Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd and they're talking about stuff with Dana's building.
Book of Revelations.
Yeah. They said that like thank God they got the footage that they needed because the car actually died. They were like it literally was a piece of shit.
That's great. The DeLorean in Back to the Future, it really was a piece of shit.
I mean, come on. When they introduced Dana, she's going into the Ghostbusters. Ray's working on it, so it's like, here you go.
Oh my god!
But it's so appropriate for those guys starting that business. Of course, everything's going to be crude and archaic, and I think that's the beauty of like these fan clubs. It literally is like, yeah, we could build this stuff. Like before, like Jeff has a replica proton pack
that's awesome,
that he purchased. But when you went on these Ghostbusters fan sites, I mean, these fans literally built something that looks like they could be a studio creator.
Yeah, you can turn it on.
It's a prop that you could put in the movie.
And it looked legit. And they were given instructions like, oh, you got to get this camping like backpack frame, and this is how you mold the shell, and you get what were they called? iPods with like mini speakers, and that's how they would do the sound effects. And I was like, wow, these guys did their homework and research and got it down to a T. And sometimes
about an iconic sound, right? Talking about like the power of just music and sound stuff. Yeah. When someone turns on a proton pack,
you know what it is.
You know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Even the one I have, they actually have mods for it now. So like everybody that is making their own, they're like, all right, so if you bought this one, you can purchase this to actually upgrade it to make it look like more of 84 or 89 or 2016, 2024. And I'm like, dude, that's kind of insane. The fact that you're making a whole market out of it. And there's one that they're constantly just updating their stuff. It's called Proton Building. And it's literally, they'll give you a rattle off of everything you need to build your own proton pack. But it's like several $1,000s at that point when you're all said and done. I'm like, I'm good.
Do you guys remember the proton pack from Mattel? The Ghostbuster Pro. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I used to have one of those. My friend used to have the ghost trap and stuff like that, and it had this foam thing. It looked like a
like part of a Nerf gun or something.
Right.
My daughter has the upgraded version of that now. It's a little bit thinner, but you still have all the same functions.
Oh, that's awesome. Does it still make that ring?
No, it actually will spin and it'll actually turn for you and it'll actually give you that noise.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she's actually the one that like really got me back into the cartoon because I was trying to introduce it to her slowly and then she like ate it up. So it's like she fell in love with Slimer and like even we were rewatching the movie this morning. That's when I started realizing like this movie is a little bit scarier than I remember because she was starting to be like, "Oh, this is scary." I'm like, "No, you're good." And also, yeah, it is.
Terror dogs coming through the couch and capturing Dana. Yeah, that's a horrifying scene.
The librarian.
Yeah, that's actually the one that got her was the librarian because I'm like sitting there going, "Yeah, this should be all right." And also, I'm like, really right before it happens, like, no, not even close.
Wait till Dan Aykroyd's like, get her.
Yeah. What was you thinking on this?
Get her right.
Yeah.
The scariest ghost in the cartoons was, I think it had to be the boogeyman.
Yeah. because that one had more of a real feel to it because nobody knows what the boogeyman looks like.
Right. And then when they're
now
in
you're
the
giving
town with all the doors. Yeah.
Yeah. But she fell in love with Slimer, and then Stay Puft was the other one because Stay Puft made a multiple appearances throughout the show, more as a kaiju than actual monster. Because they're like, oh yeah, this ghost is like as tall as a skyscraper. Let's go get Stay Puft, he'll fight him.
Soft, white, gooey kaiju.
So like you got this massive fight in Central Park with I think it's like a praying mantis and Stay Puft.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Slimer's over here talking to Stay Puft like being the in between the Ghostbusters and him so they know what to do. I'm like, are we really just watching this fight happen?
Yeah. Is this where we're at now, guys?
It
But
became
even
a
the transi-
Godzilla. Ghostbusters meets Godzilla movie now.
But it is a nice transition because, like, all right, so first movie, yes, it's a little scarier than we all remember, basing it upon a 5-year-old's vision. So, like, as we're watching as adults, like, oh yeah, this is not scary. But when you're transitioning from 84 to 89, you can see that they did make it more family friendly. It was brighter. Some of the ghosts weren't as scary, but the effects were still there.
Well, they did keep some of the horror elements, which I actually did appreciate in number 2. The bathtub scene with the slime, that's definitely one.
That was intense.
The severed heads in the subway station.
I forgot about that.
That was awesome.
Winston moment.
Yeah.
Those were pretty graphic looking severed heads that were all over that underground railway station.
Yep.
And that ghost train.
Yeah.
Did you catch the number of that train? Sorry.
I missed
it. But the cartoon filling in that gap. So you've got 5 years. So you were talking about everybody kind of forgetting that the Ghostbusters did this amazing thing. So you got 5 years of nothing. So maybe all the ghosts died out. The city was like, all right, this never actually happened because it looks bad. You got this giant marshmallow monster running down middle of Manhattan. Yeah, of course this didn't happen. So like everyone's gonna think that they were lying. And then when they talked about it in Afterlife, the fact that nothing has happened in 30 years or 35 years, they are now showing that us as society really do have goldfish memories. Because all right, so something bad happened. I'm gonna make the analogy. It's going to be really bad right now. Look at 9/11. Like no one really cares about it right now. It's a big impact to us because we were living through it at the time.
Right.
And how devastating it was. But society now, like it doesn't even seem to have phased them that this actually happened. So this actually shows that in movie form, this can happen. In real life, this did happen. And so it's like, all right, now is it something that us as society as a whole are just like, oh, we're not giving a shit? Or is it just because like this is so traumatic, we want to almost suppress that it happened? So believing that I don't even know how big it was, 112-foot tall marshmallow man running through Manhattan happened, or a giant building exploding off the top because of 4 guys in proton packs, would you want to admit that happened?
Right.
I mean, hell, for 5 years, like, yeah, I'd be like,
the conspiracy theorists come out and the tinfoil hats and
the psychology behind it. Yeah.
That's
dude. That's real deep. Yeah.
But I mean, unless the footage didn't pick up the Marshmallow Man on the news, you know.
Right.
Well, they had TV.
I mean, like if it's still there.
I mean, there were people that were filming that Marshmallow Man. There was a couple shots.
Where there's
television crew members looking up, like, okay, we got it, we got the footage. Did you not get
like it's one thing to suppress it, but it's another thing to deny it.
And that comes down to the conspiracy theories now. So that might have been doctored enough to be like, oh, they just want to do it for I'm trying to say views, but whatever ratings. That's the word I was looking for. Oh, they made this happen because of ratings. It's just like a smudge on the lens or something stupid like that.
Right, of course.
But it's like, dude, you literally watched them destroy a church, 37 cars.
Half a square block. I mean, we can go on.
How about EPA Director Dickless, who got covered in its guts like at the very end? I don't think that was made up.
That was a hoax. You all right? He just covered himself in shaving cream and called it a night.
Which is what they did.
That's
use.
what they really
was actual shaving cream.
You know how you were saying that, like, they didn't like in the first movie, like the second movie, they weren't really talking about what happened in the first movie. In the cartoon series, they talk about it a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's like it's a continuation from after that because they're like, oh, because I think the first episode takes place after they got rid of the Marshmallow Man, and they're talking about, well, it's been dead, and then they start getting phone calls and all this other weird stuff happens. Like I think it was the Sandman they went after first. And he was a pretty creepy ghost too for a cartoon character, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, they had some dark moments in that cartoon, but
Oh yeah.
like Jeff said before, it was the 80s. We don't give a fuck.
I miss that attitude, to be honest.
Right. I mean, we've definitely gone soft in society, and I think it's easy for guys our age because I mean, like the three of us have talked about it. We've like been raised on horror. So seeing scary stuff is like nothing to us. And even though like 90s horror was really crappy at that time, I can still find like some appreciation for a movie that's kind of forgotten, like Wishmaster, or I can watch Tales from the Crypt and I go, wow. I mean, I loved it then, but I love it even more now just because everything else sucks.
Hey, real quick, not to be a downer. I gotta do a hard stop at 11. I gotta go teach a judo class.
Oh yeah, no. All right, let's do our favorite scenes then and wrap this up. So you guys have favorite scenes?
Definitely.
Oh, you go first, bro.
So are we talking comedic or horror or just
Anything in general?
Whatever.
Yeah.
You can say what you can say why too.
All right. Yeah, there are so many good scenes in it, but the one that keeps coming to mind for the comedic effect is like, is this true? Yes, it's true. This man has no dick. Like, it's just so good, man. It's so good. And again, there's a favorite horror scene, there's a favorite action, but that one's awesome.
Nice.
There you go. You got one?
I mean, yeah, I know it's probably like cliche, but like, man, like anything with Slimer, like, because when I grew up watching it, like my dad showed me when I was probably like 6 or 7, and like, you know, I fell in love with Slimer, you know, first, so, you know, just like your daughter, and it's for me, I still love him, you know.
I think my favorite episode, and I'm not episode, scene, and it's kind of lame, but is when Egon starts talking about the Tobin spirit guide, and he has like all the history on these ghosts, and I guess that's what really turned me on to like that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, he's got a spirit guide, so they know exactly what they're dealing with, you know, and like he was talking about Zuul and all that, and I thought that was all right.
Yeah.
It was like the intelligence of it, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. I think my favorite horror scene is when they go after the librarian. That's pretty funny.
Nice.
Funny and scary at the same time.
There's a part. Right. I remember as a kid, I had just watched the scene and I turned to my mom. So you know when the librarian is talking to the Ghostbusters for the first time, and then Venkin goes, "Are you Alice menstruating right now?" And then I turn to my mom and I go, like, "Yeah, remember that scene where Alice menstruating was talking to the Ghostbusters, like first and last, you know what I mean?" Yeah.
I can only imagine what she was. I can only imagine what she said or was thinking at that moment.
Past it. She was, "Oh, don't worry, like you'll get that one day, honey." You know. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, hey, we'll let you guys go and we'll wrap up the show on our end since you guys got to head out. Do you want to tell everybody how to check you guys out and how to follow you?
Yeah, sure. All of our social media accounts, you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything is at Gozer_music. We're on every streaming service, you know, iTunes, YouTube Music, Spotify, everything. The first album that we came out with a year ago is The Far Realm, and you can stream it everywhere.
Album cover by our friend Jen Harding.
Yeah, thank you. It's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it was an awesome cover. You're awesome, Jen.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having us on. Yeah. This is really cool.
Oh, hey, thank you guys for coming on. This was awesome.
Seriously, guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a good rest of the weekend and rock on, dudes.
All right, guys.
Later, boys.
And that was Gozer, everybody.
Yes.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I listened to their song "Poison Clown." That was probably my favorite one that I came across so far. But they've got a good heavy metal vibe.
Yeah, they do. I seen them live up in New York, and they put on a good show too. They're a lot
Aren't
of
they
fun.
playing tomorrow night too?
I think
Yeah.
like they
We should
been,
ask, you know.
Yeah, we
I
have
didn't
connections.
realize that Jen Harding created their logo. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
She
She was
posted
proud
it.
of that too. Yeah.
Huh. I don't know. I live in a cave sometimes.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, it's a very bland cave right now.
You literally look like you're in an asylum or getting your mugshot right.
I know. I'm like,
that,
there's
that
nothing
wall, like
behind you.
behind you.
Oh yeah, okay, the wall. I'm like, what? You think like my hair getting all grungy and wearing a bomber jacket? Like I'm not part of this decade?
No,
I got the Ghostbusters patch
it's
right
your
here.
wall.
My wall.
Your
No,
wall.
no, no. I'm just trying to get a feeling of what it's like to film an outdoor scene in Plan 9 from outer space. You know, I'm trying to be like a military commander commanding troops to bomb these aliens, and I'm
Oh
outside.
my
This is not
gosh.
like a wall or anything that was filmed in the 1950s to make it look like sky, right? This,
Sure. And I'm trying out for a Queen tribute band to be Freddie Mercury.
I mean, if you want to.
you could honestly do that right now. Who's stopping you?
I figured you're
Maybe a
going
lookalike contest more.
I figure you're trying to redo Tom Atkins from Night of the Creeps. So you got the short hair, you got the mustache.
I need a beer
figured
and
that's-
cigarettes.
Yeah. Just need
I
the
already-
trench coat and the tie.
I already got a beautiful woman, so
Exactly.
All right, so stop one right here. Night of the Creeps. There we go.
Could you imagine
Oh my
if
God.
I brought home the thing we found at Mahoning? Said, yo, Jackie, check this out. You know, the adult thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
Oh man. So
I'll
what are
check the
your
cartoons.
favorite scenes, guys?
I was like, hold up, before we even do that, like there's so much I felt like we skipped. There's like so
Okay.
much. Cause like honestly, like with it being 40 years, even with Gozer here, we did talk about like both movies, the show, and I feel like with it being such a heavy effects heavy movie, like it doesn't get enough credit for it. Like you were talking earlier, it's really a comedy based effects movie. And dude, there's 160 people that did all this work, and I don't feel like they get enough notoriety.
No, they don't. At that time, it was all practical effects. And remember when Kevin Mangold was on our episode about playing Slimer for the new Ghostbusters, he was saying that he was actually on set before they couldn't be on set, especially because that stunt guy at that time was big. You know, he would have like
Yeah.
towered over the other guys.
Mhm.
So it's crazy how like everything's changed, and what they did was so like that was actually one of the big things that made me want to see Ghostbusters. Was I remember my dad was over at his one friend's house, and some of their other adult buddies were over, and somebody actually said, "Did you know that Slimer was actually a guy in a suit?" And my kid brain was going,
What?
really?
Yeah.
It wasn't like some puppet or special effects. And he said, yeah, it was a guy and he's like flailing his arms and he's just behind a screen. And I was like, okay, now I got to see this movie. How did they pull that off? Because it looked like an apparition, but yet it was still a real tangible object. It wasn't
Movie
CGI.
magic.
It wasn't lighting or crystals like doing like a prism sort of effect. I was like, that is wild.
Mhm.
It, honestly, like even I'd say actually check out that documentary Cleaning Up the Town. It actually is all about the effects of this movie.
Okay.
And the fact that they were like, we can do a black background with whatever puppets you're doing. So you have 6 people operating Slimer. You have a guy in the suit who is the arms and essentially the head. So he's got a piece on his head that can do the mouth. But it's like then you got everybody doing the eyes, you got a dude reaching his arm through and being just the tongue. I don't like, dude, that alone like blew my mind.
Mhm.
Like for being ahead of its time. The effects on this movie I feel like were ahead of its time.
Oh,
Making
yeah.
the proton, I guess, lights was
Streams,
really
you
cool.
mean?
Yeah, stream. Yeah, like that right there was actually really cool. So they based it upon the end of the wand itself would light up, and then from that moment on, they would then make the art for the stream to come out. So it's like that right there. I was like, damn. So you're overlaying all this art on top of the film to get the effect that you want, instead of it just being like you said, CGI. That was unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, it was. They don't talk about the complications that I'm sure they went through in trying to make that enough. You know, it must have not has been as painstaking as the shark in Jaws, but still, I could only imagine what it must have been like to kind of have like a live cartoon. Like I was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I don't think came out at that time, did it?
I forget.
Let me look that up.
I think wasn't it a little bit later.
I want to say it was later.
We'll find out in just a second.
One
I
thing
don't
was always
have
curious
I don't
about-
have Jamie like Joe Rogan does, so we got to do things our way.
One thing I was curious about our Ghostbuster patches. I wonder how many designs they crafted before they settled on this. Like, I wonder how many
1988.
Okay.
1988.
I think there's like 3 or 4 different designs of that ghost, and that
Okay.
was the one that they really just went basic with it, and it was a little more iconic than trying to make it really detailed. So if you're looking at it as a logo, like basic, whatever, it's perfect for what it is.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Since
I'd
that's
say
when
even
they went off on Ecto 1, and when they started getting more money, they actually put it outside the firehouse.
Yeah.
Let people know, hey, this is where our headquarters are at. We have
Oh,
board things
oh.
again.
And it's like what Nick said. As soon as you hear the proton packs light up, you know exactly what it is.
That's
you
Ghostbusters.
you
Yeah.
see this, it's no question what it is. Like even these name tags that
Oh my
like the
gosh,
one
yeah.
now that has my name on it, you know, like, oh, that's it's like a Ghostbusters name tag.
Yeah.
You know,
I
you
think,
wear it above your left pec, it's like, oh yeah.
come on, even the tan jumpsuits, instantly you know what that is. Like, so it's like you're looking at everything that became iconic at the time was just really generic, because like, all right, so you had jumpsuits, elbow pads, black gloves, work boots, cool, and then you kind of just add to it, and it like, oh, so now you've got these 4 characters with this uniform, and it kind of just stuck with it, and then like as you're now going forward with it, it's like, oh yeah, that's Ghostbusters. That's
Yeah. Forgot cosmonauts too. What are you guys supposed to be? Some kind of cosmonaut? No, somebody saw a cockroach up on the 3rd floor. We're gonna take care of it.
Bite your head off, man.
Giant cockroach. Bite your head off.
I think that's like one of the beauties about like why these like fan things can just like start, like you can do it on your own. You know what I mean? Like you can get the tan jumpsuit, and now with like the cosplay stuff, finding these patches are so easy. Even though I think the patches were still like really easy to find, like for quite some time, but to get authentic ones now is a lot easier, and with the shopping convenience of the internet,
The popularity of the
and that the people on on Etsy, like I said, like you had fans building proton packs and selling the shells to say, oh hey, build your own, make your own. You don't just have to buy them,
so they can just keep making more of them.
right? Yeah. Part of me says I still would love to do that, but I'm hoping some of the prices drop down in those, like making your own, especially now that it's very similar to what Jeff paid for his his. So it's like, if they want some competition in the market, that's what they got to do.
The only difference I've noticed with mine is it's like the backpack to it. I think if they would have done a little bit more with it, it'd be a little more comfortable to wear longer. So like when I was wearing it at the convention, I had to have it adjusted correctly, or it was just going to hurt my back all day. Yeah. So it's like it would actually like hang lower. I would actually have to pull it up tighter and tighter. But then I realized it's like, I think that was the point. You need it up really high to give that balance. So it's like that would have been a better bet. But honestly, for what it is, I'm happy to have it finally. But like you said, it didn't cost me an arm and a leg. It just took several years for like. So it's a nice thing to have, and like as soon as I turned it on, I felt like a little kid, because I have it. You got the noises. It's like, oh my gosh, it lights up perfectly.
What we need, we need a large vacuum seal. That's how we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when we do the pictures and we have all those props like the Jason mask and the Freddy glove. I love when we do those pictures together, and that
Yeah.
proton pack was no different. It literally was like, oh, this is so cool.
I mean, even think of last year when we went and saw Ghostbusters at Mahoning, and they actually had Ecto One there. I was so in love with
They
that
have to.
car, just yeah.
Yeah.
And it really like made me feel like a kid again, like looking at it and realizing like, yo, this is something that has impacted us for our whole lives. Like we didn't even know it.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the things that the three of us had bonded over were conversations like this that made us friends, and this is literally like us carrying into something that we do for entertainment now, is talking about
Like,
what we had. And there is something about like having an influence as a kid that carries on throughout so many years that makes an impact to you. Like obviously a movie like this has changed our lives, you know, like comic books have changed our lives, and the products that have followed. Like Jeff, you're a big Superman fan, John and I are Batman fans, and what do? We always talk about the originals, because before we had Man of Steel or you know, like Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson coming out, we had just the originals where a movie was a movie. It told a story. It wasn't franchise movie after movie, reboot after reboot. We had originals that we kept going back to, and these movies always had the same thing: good acting, good story, good lighting, good editing, music, you know. and
Yeah.
and that's what makes these movies timeless. And for us to, like, not only us to be talking about it, but history in general of cinema, pop culture talks about it. And I mean, Ghostbusters is also a great ensemble movie.
oh, absolutely.
I mean, Rick Moranis, Sigourney Weaver, you know, are
Honestly,
in
like
this movie.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised with Sigourney Weaver. Like the story of them saying how she just happened to audition was the fact that they were trying to go for an unnamed actress. And then the fact that like she's like, no, she wanted it. Like you got Ripley wanting to be in Ghostbusters. And at that moment, I'm like, holy shit, that's
That's how
actually
she got started with like Aliens. Like she almost wasn't going to audition for Alien, but she did. And how it's like this, it's like history repeating itself with Ghostbusters. I didn't realize that.
and then actually Ivan Reitman was the one who said that Sigourney Weaver is what helped him get out
Come
of his
up with
writer's
the
block
with the
for the end.
possession.
Yeah. And she literally got on her hands and knees and did the dog motions during her audition. And he's like, holy shit. And
This woman's committed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's acknowledging that she was the one that came up with the idea that he didn't, it shows that Ivan Reitman is that good of a dude that he's acknowledging where he's getting his inspiration, and the fact that
Yes.
this woman now helped him finish the movie. And I love the fact that she played it straight. Like you can tell the annoyance with her and Peter. And I
Oh,
loved it. I love that interactions between the two, because you could tell 100% that she hated this dude.
Well, he like flat out just says, I am madly in love with you.
I know. And I
How?
love her facial expressions about this whole like interaction in her apartment. And I'm like, damn.
Oh.
And the fighting for the date. I'm busy.
Yeah.
He's like, Miss Barrett.
I think one of the iconic scenes I laugh at the most is how pissed Janine gets with I guess Peter, and then answers the phone going, Ghostbusters, what do you want?
It's like the
Yeah.
key. It's
She's
like
put
her
better jobs
signature.
than this.
But
Like
the
a
funny thing is,
like typical New York annoyed, you know, born and raised. Yeah, like go F yourself. You know. Oh, Jeff, did we lose you?
Oh my God, we lost him again.
Oh no!
no,
Oh, there he
I
is.
was like, I
Oh,
got worried. I was like, holy shit, it happened again.
I was like, we lost him again.
I just saw this.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, not again.
But like
Just
when I
got zapped in
discovered
the trapper.
yeah, but when I discovered that Annie Potts was so pissed at Bill Murray, that's where that came from.
Oh,
Because she felt like he fucked around too much. And like
Ugh.
a lot of that does turn off a lot of actors. It's like, hey, I got a script, stick to the lines. I'm not an improv person like you. Please don't derail me or throw me off my game. And that really does rub some actors the wrong way. if you've got one improv actor versus a non-improv actor, you've got butting heads.
Like Dan Aykroyd said, an enigma within an enigma. That's Bill
Yeah.
Murray.
I don't like it kind of pisses me off in a sense. Like I know it shouldn't, like he waited till last minute to like just show up.
Yeah,
Like, dude,
just
like if you're
like,
committed,
he's
just say
gonna
like,
be
yeah, I'll be
here.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. It's the history of him with his character. I know, like Harold Ramis said before he passed away, he said, Bill Murray, this is the kind of guy he is. He's the kind of guy that will give you his kidney, but do not expect a phone call from him ever again.
I am glad to hear that him and Ramis did make up though.
I'm
towards
glad
the
that they
end.
made up. Yeah.
Because apparently they were friends for a lot longer than what we all thought. And
Mhm.
could you just imagine like how much more great stuff we could have gotten from them?
Yeah. If it
Or-
didn't blow up after Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and
it's
another Ghostbusters film, another collaboration with between the three of them. I mean, like the two of them and Ivan Reitman, or who knows?
I mean, even like the lead up to it, like you think about it, because I'm actually reading Violet's book, the Ghostbusters daughter, and you could see it's like subtle there, like because of how much him, Ivan Reitman, and Bill Murray, Harold Ramis I was talking about, are all like kind of like constantly working through the 80s. You could see that there was going to be a buildup between somewhere. So like Bill Murray being Bill Murray, like the constant improv, the constant like not weather committing. You could tell that like it's gonna piss somebody off, and it just happened to be like one of his best friends instead of like somebody that was like a one-off. So like I wouldn't have mattered if it was Richard Dreyfuss and what about Bob? That would have probably been a better choice of like getting pissed off about. But it just happened to be Harold Ramis and Bill Murray, and like two of the most funny people out there, and it just happened to like just had a really shitty experience doing one movie. But it's like it might have just been that buildup of, dude, come on. And then now that like Harold Ramis was his boss in that movie, it probably made it harder.
Yeah, that's very possible. I mean, that we don't know the full story yet. There's speculations out there, but I think
at this point, I don't think it should matter. Like they did
doesn't.
resolve it, and like
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Like it sucks that it happened. Like you said, there could
Water
be
under
more
the
from it.
bridge.
Yeah.
But like as human beings, it's still really great to hear that whatever beef they had, Murray put it aside and said, I got to go see him before he's actually gone.
It's true. What
Like, how bad was it? Like,
Yeah.
did he like fuck you over with money? Did he sleep with your wife? But even with stuff like that, you just gotta put some of that aside. So, it's not like they had a hit out for him and tried to
be awful.
I said,
that I'd understand.
he just hate his baggage. Life's too short to be pissed off all the time. So
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I'm really proud of Harold Ramis because he was like somebody who really worked more behind the scenes. He directed National Lampoon's Vacation. He did a lot of the writing, but Caddyshack. But his performance as Egon was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
I
stands
love
out a lot
him
for
as
that.
that character. It was his idea to come up with the hair and change his voice and have that dry sense of humor. I mean, and like Carl Newman was saying, I'd rather have quality over quantity. And if that's like the only performance that we really remember Harold Ramis for, hey, so be it. He remembered a character that's going to live on forever and inspire people to be scientists too at that, which is even cooler yet.
I mean, even his daughter said it best. Like she identified with her dad in that movie because of like how cool he made it to be nerdy and kind of that outcast, because like he played it straight. He wanted it to be something that could live on as a legacy in one character. Like at the time, he probably didn't realize it was happening, but it was. I think in 2 you started seeing it a little bit more.
Right.
Like, it was cool that Egon was the core of the group. Like you said, he had the ideas, he had everything going on, and everyone else kind of worked with him. And how now that Afterlife and Frozen Empire are dealing with Egon's kids and grandkids, it's kind of cool seeing like, all right, so he was the one that was still doing stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I also just like to go back to these characters, it's easy to relate to them too, because it's not like they were the roided out 80s heroes that we knew. It could easily have been you and I, and to like put on a proton pack, learn the craft, do proton training and how to interact with ghosts. I think that also resonates with other people. It's not like, you're looking like a Stallone or Arnold and
You don't want to see Arnold Schwarzenegger, especially Stallone, Carl Weathers, all jacked up muscles wearing proton packs hunting ghosts down? You don't want to see that?
I'm not saying I
Listen-
wouldn't want to.
Listen,
Yeah,
all I could
that
see-
could have easily happened.
listen, I can just see Arnold punching the shit out of Slimer. There is no
Oh,
Proton
you
pack
slime
is
me.
Come on, slide me.
I thought this Gozer was a woman. I'm confused.
but
Arnie, you got no style, man. That's my terrible Carl Weathers.
There could be so many crossovers. Like we see the fan Nightmare on Elm Street, like Freddy versus Ghostbusters crossover. Could you imagine with the alien stuff if like Ghostbusters went to LV-426 and fought
oh my
xenomorphs,
gosh.
and then the Predator shows up yet, and you just see like the old guys being like, "Okay, I'm out."
I'm just thinking of if Dan Aykroyd finally getting his dream of like Ghostbusters in space, okay? But I think one of the best crossovers I've seen with Ghostbusters was probably the Ninja Turtles, because it's
yeah.
cool like seeing them interact, but it's not the same universe. So you're having like a portal open because of a ghost crossing over into New York, let's say like 86, and you have all these like creatures that Ghostbusters thought were demons. So it's like, oh shit, man.
Yeah.
But it's cool like seeing that stuff. Like we were talking about how it affected everybody over time, and like how even look at Stranger Things. Like so that right there showed like the popularity of that movie during that era. Like because that was what 84 or 85 when that second season happened. Hell, I was excited to even just see the fact that they were wearing the jumpsuits. And the fact that Finn went from playing a kid wearing it to actually
wearing it to actually being in it.
I wish we would have gotten our third movie though. Like just the originals, just that. And like I'm happy for the game. I'm happy for everything that we've gotten from this original movie. And there's so much more. We probably could talk all day about this movie. I know we could.
Oh
but...
yeah.
7 hours later.
Yeah. Like we've had a nice mix of, like a little bit of, 2016, the newer films, and Ghostbusters 2 with the guys from Gozer on here, which was really fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, like just to think like all that we talked about was started from this one. This one from 1984 that originally when it was pitched was going to be like a special effects comedy. Nobody's going to see that, and it's going to cost too much. It'll bomb. And here it made $300 million worldwide on a budget of $25 million. That was like Marvel money,
It was lightning in a bottle.
At
and
that time.
Not to mention that, like, space it out for inflation. Like, imagine that amount of money today, because tickets back then were $3 or less.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
That much money with just $3 tickets. Imagine what it would make if it were adjusted for today's inflation.
Yeah. I mean, Mahoning Drive-In had a packed night for Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on the original 35 millimeter with Ecto 1 there. So it goes to show that that was a Friday night, and they still had a Saturday to go.
Yeah.
Playing 1 and 2, which very rarely does Mahoning Drive-In ever do the same films back to back on like a Friday, Saturday, or
yeah, they did 1 and 2 and Afterlife. Afterlife was obviously digital.
Yeah, it was the 3 movies, but and like you said, Afterlife had to be digital. But still, to have like everybody get pumped to be like, yeah, we're gonna watch 1 and 2 on 35 millimeter the way they originally were, and then
hell yeah,
have Ecto 1 there. And what Jeff, remember when somebody dressed in like a Slimer outfit and came out when Slimer was around, and when Ecto 1 came out of the firehouse, they turned the actual lights on in the car because it
Yes.
was still in front of the screen, and you heard the where. Even Jackie
Oh.
says to me, she goes, "This is the best night ever."
It was. It was. It's like it made us feel like kids again. Like even when we saw the Back to the Future and they did that, it just
Back
seeing
to the Future, that was fun. That was a fun night.
yeah, just seeing the car there, it's cool. Like actually looking at it and touching it, which you're not supposed to. But
we got to put our hand on the steering wheel. We got to like go in that car and pretend to drive it.
We did the
But-
poster, like, you know, us all looking at our cell phones or watches. We recreated that there.
Mhm.
That was fun. I was up there for the 60s Batman movie, and they had the Batmobile up there.
Did they sell shark repellent?
No.
They might have had something like that up there because they had cosplayers with props. Somebody was running around in a Batman outfit with the bomb. And,
oh, that's awesome.
And the Bat Cycle was there. It's just so cool. And their owner, Jeff, who recently passed away, Jeff Maddox, I remember when we had conversations with him, I said, it's really awesome that you guys like basically make events out of this stuff, not just a double, triple feature. And he said, that's what we try to do. We try to make everything an event and create memories here. It's, you know, supposed to be more than just a movie experience. And they delivered that night at Ghostbusters, and people came out, and it was so much fun.
Yeah. Honestly, like I have yet to go and have a bad experience. Even when we saw Monster Squad, it was pouring. We still had fun.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. It was a day, but still.
Was it? I do Zombie Fest every year, and I'm excited for this year because they're doing the Romero, I guess saga. So 2 nights, Saturday and Sunday. So it's the original trilogy and the second trilogy, and plus Ken Foree's there. Who cares?
Yeah.
Ken Foree.
I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
You want to say hi?
Oh, hey.
What do you like about? Hey, what do you like about Ghostbusters?
And because they blast things.
You like
That
it when they
guy
blast
goes.
things?
Yeah, do you like it? Do you like Slimer?
Yeah, that's
That's right. That's right, Thea.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
okay.
That was our first guest.
Second guest.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, our first guest ever. Or when we,
Oh yeah, first guest ever.
before,
Yes.
before we had co-hosts, you know, and then Thea was our first guest when Jeff
Oh,
wore on the kangaroo pouch and fall asleep while we talked.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that because like she would start babbling and then fall right back asleep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
when she wasn't audible and could have the like in the Halloween episodes,
Oh, which was slapping my head.
the history of Halloween. Oh, and then Ruth as Lord Damien McDonovan was like, "Oh, you know, the fall was the harvest season and a time for slaughter," and you hear her go, "Oh."
Oh, she really is.
It was perfect.
I know we're running short on time, so you guys
Yeah.
have
Scenes?
favorite scenes?
Ever since.
Oh fuck, man, this movie's just one of those where everything there's like not a bad moment about it. I think maybe the Ghostbusters song gets played a little too repetitively in it. I always love seeing the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and Slimer. I mean, I like those are two key ghosts and like special effects and just as important characters of the movie itself. All the guys are like super talented in it, but I gotta say that the one-liners from Harold Ramis and Ernie Hudson they're the best.
Nice.
Yeah.
My favorite scene, I've gone back and forth on this, but I think I actually started settling on the capture of Slimer because that is the seed that is planted to the greatness that comes after this film. And, you know, it's them working as a team. There's the three. And then when they capture Slimer, they break the doors down. We came, we saw, we kicked its ass. And you see the personalities of all three of them, like talking to this hotel manager. You see the first thing after they're discussing what it is that they actually captured, and then you get Bill Murray with his pad and paper, like let's talk business, all right now, because we're at the end of our rope right now, and you guys are the only thing that are going to keep us afloat. So we need 5 big ones from you.
And Harold Ramis is there, like adding on.
Yeah, right. $5,000. I won't pay any of that. That's okay. We'll just let this thing go right back into your hotel, and we'll let it haunt you for the rest of your days. And
I love the fact that he's even like, we're gonna have a sale this week on the, trapping and containment of the beast.
yeah, that's only going to come down to $1,000 because originally our work is about 4 big ones.
Yeah, just talking them down like, hey, you're getting a
But, yeah.
deal here.
The build of that, like you learn the lesson of don't cross the streams, the explanation about that, and even like the tablecloth being pulled at the table, and then all the flowers are still standing as they're just trying to work together as a team, making this entire dance floor ballroom a mess, destroying so much property just to capture this one gelatinous blob, essentially. It's so funny.
You slime me.
But the fact that it's a midnight buffet is what caught my attention. I'm like, why is it already set up? And then on the wall it does say midnight buffet. I'm like, wait, what?
That's perfect for me.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I mean, like, I'm being extremely nitpicky. Like, I don't have a least favorite scene, but yeah, some of the special effects, of course, don't age well. Just a few things, like maybe the storm clouds coming in over the hotel. Like, okay, that's obviously noticeable, but for the most part, everything holds up. I don't think they overplayed the music personally. Because I dig it. It's a catchy tune.
I like Elmer Bernstein's music too. That kind of became a character in itself, and it has carried on. I think he passed away before the second one, and
I didn't care for the second one that much. The second,
it fell out of place.
Yeah, it was like a rap almost. I'm just like, this doesn't really fit. This doesn't really fit Ghostbusters. I don't know.
Yeah, it was different.
I'd say, honestly, the music alone, I think, does play a big part because, like, as soon as you hear, like, take for instance in the beginning of Frozen Empire, they did that do do do. You know where that came from. You know what it is, and like Elmer Bernstein did an amazing job with just everybody's themes. Come on, that my brain just totally drew a blank on the theme, that traveling theme that
yeah
yeah. And it's really cool because of everything. And I was glad they did reuse some of that stuff in like the video games, and even now, like in Afterlife and Frozen Empire, they still kind of just sample those notes just so you know that it's still part of the same universe.
Yeah,
right.
And I would say honestly, if you ever get a chance, just listen to the whole thing by itself. It's actually really cool. Thea actually chose it as one of her albums of the week, and I was like, that's the first time I actually listened to it front to back. And I was like, that's where I was like, oh crap, like, dude, there's a lot of like iconic noises just coming from it. So it's like, I didn't realize it was just his that everyone kind of used on throughout every incarnation or movie, just because it was that ahead of the curve at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, somebody who doesn't get enough notoriety because he didn't actually probably get to see all of it. His, I guess not fame, but you know what I mean? Like, because he passed shortly thereafter. So it's like, it's not something that you get to see like in a short period of time. Sometimes it takes a while. Come on, look at Night of the Creeps, look at Halloween 3. It's now what, 30 and 40 years later that they're now being like, oh yeah, these are actually decent movies.
Mm-hmm.
So
plus I think when you're not like Danny Elfman or John Williams, where it's like movie after movie and it feels like you have a hit, it's not like Williams had Star Wars and then Jaws and Indiana Jones, and then Elfman was Beetlejuice, Batman, Nightmare Before Christmas. It's just that one movie, and then when he passed, it kind of like didn't help him build a resume more after that. But
you had Jerry Goldsmith, you had James Horner, you had all the great composers. James
now probably Hans Zimmer, was a big one now.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's big in the 90s too. Hans Zimmer has been around since Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But I think Batman Begins like really brought him back because that orchestral soundtrack is just kick ass.
I'd say honestly, my favorite scene out of the entire movie is actually the elevator scene when they're all staying there talking about never turning on the packs.
We haven't had a successful test with this equipment.
Exactly. And it's just funny because like if you're watching it, just take that point of the movie and just watch it, you're gonna see all three of their acting skills just in about what 30 seconds.
Mhm.
Because like even when they flip it on, you're watching Egon kind of like go against the back wall and move sideways away from it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. And I'm like, so
this
over
could
time,
blow
it's like,
up at any minute.
yeah. And like Bill Murray just still kind of shrugs it off, like, all right, it's not blowing up yet.
Yeah, just getting pushed. Like, what are you doing, Egon?
And it was like, it's like the perfect moment of those three like coming together, realizing like, yeah, this is actually happening. So I was like, cool, first job. And it just like the fact that like they're wearing the proton packs and it says no smoking in the background.
Yeah.
Gonna be smoke.
Yeah, I can't talk enough about like how it was so smart and so clever what these guys did, and it was like a germ of Dan Aykroyd's brain and true family events, and all of a sudden it became this huge thing that has touched our lives. It's just so wild. Like it makes you want to get into like learning more about ghosts and ghost history. And I mean, obviously it's Hollywood, it's fabricated, they make it fun, but it's still stuff that we have that is so unknown. But I feel like it's unknown or not certified for a reason, and probably because kind of like a Ouija board, you know, you don't really want to mess with it because you never know who you're going to be talking to on the other end of that line. So
exactly.
And I think there's the same goes for religion. Like there's things that we keep unknown because I think the more like say like witches, you know, we talk about witches for a reason. I feel like if people actually understood what real magic is, or like worshiping some dark and occult stuff, could you imagine the chaos that would be in this world if everybody had power like that? Or if somebody knew that, oh, you had that power, well, then they'd want it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, of course.
So it's just crazy. And it really opens your mind to this kind of thing, too. I mean, you don't have to believe it. Dan Aykroyd said Harold Ramis was a skeptic and he didn't believe any of this stuff, but he was still a part of this franchise and knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Didn't mean like he had to be dismissed from it at all.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Whole franchise. I mean, this movie in particular was lightning in a bottle. That's what it was.
Yeah.
They had no idea what they had until they had it, and then the movie came out and it was a massive success. I thought it waited a little too long to make the second movie, but there was probably some like red tape that had to be crossed and getting everybody's schedules to line up in order to make this next film happen. I know I've talked to a lot of people about what their opinion is about this being a franchise, whether it should be one or shouldn't be. It's kind of like the same thing with Terminator. They feel like there should have just been 2 movies and that's it. Why are we getting more? So they kind of feel the same way, like after the second Ghostbusters, why are we getting more? It should have just been those 2 films and that's it. But you know, I'm more than okay with having multiple films in this franchise. It feels different than Terminator to me, and that could be a combination of the director and the vision behind creating these stories to life. There probably just is. There's no time travel involved in Ghostbusters, so that makes things less convoluted. So,
but you can explore more in Ghostbusters. Like maybe there's a time where they can go through like a paranormal limbo, you know, or something, and explore more in the supernatural realm at some point and upgrade equipment, you know, have like an Ecto-1 tank or something, you know, like you could be like really wild stuff. Terminator didn't do that. It's almost like Star Wars. Like I remember a while back when The Mandalorian came out, I think Jeff said it best that like George Lucas created this universe, but really Star Wars is more like this.
Yeah.
And we're finally getting it now. And you're not wash, rinse, repeating when Terminator was wash, rinse, repeat a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, what am I watching?
Right.
Like, why?
How many times do we have to see somebody go back in time to save somebody from a a more superior Terminator, and yeah,
Like, say what you will about Salvation, but at least
that
it
was the
was
closest thing that they tried to make things different.
different.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like I've said this before many times. Like, I think Salvation deserves its criticism, but it was different. And I think Terminator Genesis was actually one of the better sequels because you could do a reboot with time travel. And I think if you did a third Terminator movie in the 90s while Michael Biehn and Sarah Connor and Arnold were still pretty young yet at that time, that could have worked out and you could have done it then.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, it was perfect to just be two movies and done, honestly.
yeah.
And I think like if they were going to follow up too, they could have done a RoboCop versus Terminator as well as like a
That's
like
still
a third
possibility.
but I mean, like in the mid 90s they could have done that, said, yo, Terminator 1 and 2 are done. And I wouldn't have even had Arnold in RoboCop versus Terminator. I would have Peter Weller as RoboCop fighting endoskeletons or one, and then see how that goes, and then have Arnold come in for a second RoboCop versus Terminator, because then that builds with like the hidden infiltration.
I can also see Arnold being too expensive and pricing himself out of return for that type of movie, or like want a pay raise for this.
That's true too.
I can see that because like when Batman and Robin came out, he was the highest paid actor ever at the time. Like in 1997 when that movie came out, I think they could only afford him for 10 hours of work a day. Like a strict cutoff at 10 hours. Like he had to be in his car heading home at hour 10.
Hell, that's nothing on a film shoot.
Oh, I know, but that's because that's how expensive he was. So
at that point, I wouldn't have even hired him.
Well,
because of the makeup alone.
Decision, so.
Well, the makeup and the costume, it would be like, well,
no, you could have had anybody.
Yeah.
They were trying to get butts in the seats, and they thought he's a bankable actor. We got to put him in.
Yeah, it didn't really work out.
It didn't work out, and he knows it. He's a good sport about it, but
yeah. All righty.
Batman defeated me with love.
I would say let's wrap this up a little bit because I know you got to get going soon. But honestly, I know this movie has impacted us over a course of our lifetimes. I know and I know it's impacting my daughter, as you just saw. She really got introduced to it shortly after she was born, but it was right around the 35th anniversary that I did show her the movie, but clearly it didn't stick until I want to say last year. Okay. And she's seen it several times, and this was actually the first time she got into it. So it's nice seeing that we can pass it on and it still holds up. Mm-hmm. So it's cool seeing that after 40 years that we are still getting fans. We're still getting content. We're still getting everything. It's like take for instance, I've just been trying to find out. I've just discovered that there's multiple versions of the VHS, and it kind of blew my mind. So it's like the fact that there's multiples of that out there makes it insane. So it's cool that 40 years later we're still getting stuff. We're still getting sequels, and yeah, I'm still excited for these movies.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I kind of hope that maybe we do get some sort of like HBO or Max type show where it's like other branches and other sections. Like maybe keep the Spangler family and the originals just confined to the movies. Yeah. Or maybe keep just the Spangler family involved with the movies, have them pass that torch on, and then have people from like Philadelphia to Tucson and Orlando have Ghostbusters branches, and all of a sudden it's like we got a new franchise at Ghostbusters universe of sorts, because I feel like there's so much to tell, so many new ghosts that you can do that could be great villains, and just so much lore that could be so cool if you're a horror fan, but you're not really into something so scary. It's like a perfect Halloween movie too. You can put it on. There might be sometimes where it's like, kids might not really like this, but everybody else probably could. So I think it's
a good segue movie for
it is
for kids to transfer into like scarier things. Like yes, you have scary moments, but you still got the laughs. So it's
Right.
like
Gateway.
it helps.
It does. And
Um,
I'm looking forward to the future.
I heard this statement. I'll finish up with this one. Without Ghostbusters, do you think the X Files would have happened? Because I heard that and I'm like sitting there going, thinking about it's very similar in what Ghostbusters was. So the supernatural.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you need to have movies that reinforce your pitch if you're trying to make a sci-fi television show like The X-Files. You lean back on successful movies like Ghostbusters. I think without that, it would make your pitch a little bit more difficult. Like, okay, you got to show me some evidence. What makes you think this is going to last beyond the pilot? Like, give me some examples of films or other shows that would make this validated. So I think it may have still happened. It probably would have been delayed a couple of years. I think it maybe would have eventually happened, but I think with reinforcement from past attempts that have succeeded, doesn't hurt. It helps. Can only help.
I have a hard time seeing the pitch just because X-Files was serious and Ghostbusters was more based on the comedy. And there's like if there was any comedy in X-Files, it was kind of dry and unexpected. So it's like, and it was built more about the alien conspiracy theory and the FBI, which like I admit, I mean, I don't have proof of it, but I've done my fair amount of research and I do believe that ghosts are real and I do think aliens exist. I mean,
Well,
I'm a
definitely.
Christian. I'm a Christian and my faith, and I believe in God and Jesus too. And people can judge me all they want for that, but I mean, I just don't. It's not a hill to die on. It's kind of like you have to like see your signs yourself and believe in your own things. I can't force you, or I can only tell you so much that's presented. But until my opinion is, if you just think that everything's just irony, like when isn't it? Just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, good 2 cents.
So I think this was a really fun episode. We want to say thank you to Gozer again. That was a lot of fun to have them on. Check them out on Instagram. Check them out. Their album, The Far Realm, by our friend Jen Harding, did the artwork for the album cover. And this was our Ghostbusters 1984. Happy anniversary to the movie. And with that being said, we shall sign off. This is Colin Peters.
Thunder Shredder.
And Jeff Manfred.
Thank you all once again for listening. Stay safe. Stay crazy.
Please, somebody help me.
Oh, yeah.